The storm broke over Greystone Manor with little warning, arriving as a low grumble that turned into a full-throated roar of wind and rain. By the time the first guests stepped onto the gravel drive, the sky was split with lightning, illuminating the estate's ivy-covered stone walls and shuttered windows. Thunder rattled the glass, and the wind seemed to sigh through the halls, as though the house itself exhaled some long-held breath. Greystone stood alone atop a forested hill in Yorkshire, long abandoned by the city but not by its memories. Its owner, Evelyn Montgomery, had inherited the estate a decade ago after the death of her husband, a wealthy investor with a shadowy past. Since then, she had maintained it meticulously, not out of nostalgia, but duty, perhaps even fear. Each year, she hosted a dinner party, always on the same weekend, always with the same group, always with a toast. This year's guests arrived by invitation and tradition. Dr. Victor Lane, a once renowned surgeon now retired under circumstances best left vague, came with his signature arrogance and a scent of cologne meant to mask the stench of bitterness. Margot Blair, a successful thriller novelist with more enemies than friends, appeared in black, her eyes ever watchful. Charles Fenwick, a portly art dealer on the edge of bankruptcy, arrived late, his car tires spraying mud across the stone steps. Isabel Reed, the long-serving maid, quietly ensured coats were taken and glasses filled. There was also an unexpected presence. Detective Archer Quinn arrived not by invitation but by intent. He claimed to have received a letter, a single-page warning that a murder would occur at Greystone during the dinner. The letter gave no names, only a curious phrase: "The killer will toast before they kill." Despite the storm and the threat, the evening proceeded. The guests gathered in the drawing room, where Evelyn welcomed them with practiced elegance. Champagne was served, the fire crackled, the toast was given, an annual ritual, this time tinged with awkwardness. A nod to friends lost, futures uncertain, and secrets buried. Glasses clinked, the storm howled. Later that night, when the house had gone quiet and the last footsteps faded into the creaking wood of the upper halls, a scream cut through the silence. It came from the library. Dr. Victor Lane was found dead at his desk, a glass of scotch half finished beside him. His throat had been cut, cleanly and without struggle. A single object lay in front of him, the Queen of Spades. The fireplace had gone cold. The window was slightly ajar. Detective Quinn took immediate control, ensuring no one left the house. The storm had downed the phone lines and the nearest police outpost was miles away, unreachable until morning. The killer, it seemed, was still among them. Over the following hours, Quinn worked methodically. Each guest had a motive. Evelyn had been briefly married to Lane years before her more public marriage to Samuel Montgomery. That first union, quickly annulled and never spoken of, had been toxic. Lane had been cruel, manipulative, and possessive. Evelyn had spoken of it to no one, but rumors persisted. If she had reason to kill, it was deeply personal. Margot had her own reasons. Lane had once exposed a scandal that nearly ruined her writing career, an affair, long past, with a married politician who later died under suspicious circumstances. Lane had leaked the story in exchange for money. Margot had vowed revenge, though no one had ever taken her seriously. Charles, too, was a suspect. He had borrowed heavily from Lane in secret, loan after loan, each more desperate than the last. Lane had begun calling in the debts with increasing cruelty. If Charles failed to repay, he would lose everything. The art gallery, the flat in Mayfair, the car, all of it. Desperation could make a man dangerous. Isabel, quiet and easily overlooked, had her own dark connection. Years ago, Lane had assaulted her. She had never reported it, fearing not to be believed. Evelyn had suspected something but had never asked. Isabel had remained in the house, loyal but changed. Lane's return to Greystone had shaken her visibly, though she had spoken of it to no one. Quinn kept all this to himself as he searched the library. The Queen of Spades, he knew, was no accident. In some traditions, it symbolized misfortune or betrayal. In some criminal circles, it was a calling card. But Lane had once been an avid poker player and had cheated others out of thousands. Perhaps the card was a warning. Or perhaps, it was a message from the past. By morning, the storm had begun to fade, and Quinn called everyone once again to the drawing room. There, in the cold gray light of dawn, he laid out his findings. Each guest was confronted with their connection to the victim, but none confessed. Evelyn remained composed. Charles grew pale and clammy. Margot appeared detached. Isabel said nothing. Quinn believed Evelyn had planned to confront Lane that night. She had taken a knife from the kitchen and entered the library under the guise of reconciliation. But she had left without acting. Her lipstick, found burned in the fireplace, had been thrown there in a moment of panic, perhaps after dropping it. She had thought to destroy the evidence. But the fire had not fully consumed it. The killing had happened shortly after. Someone else had entered the room and finished what Evelyn could not. In the end, it was Margot who approached Quinn quietly and told him everything. She had seen Evelyn leave the library, knife in hand, shaken but alive. She had watched from the shadows of the hallway. Once Evelyn was gone, Margot entered the room. She spoke to Lane calmly, told him he was out of time. He had laughed at her, even then. She had used Evelyn's discarded knife. The moment was fast and decisive. The scotch in his hand hadn't even spilled. She had placed the Queen of Spades in front of him not as a message to the others, but as a symbol for herself. In her novels, the Queen of Spades was always the one who wins, no matter how high the cost. And she had planned everything, the timing, the lipstick in the fire, the framing of Evelyn. But her confession was not born of guilt. It was pride. She had crafted the perfect murder. And like all great writers, she wanted her story to be known. Quinn arrested her without ceremony. The police arrived hours later. Margot went quietly. As she was led away, she remarked that prison would finally give her the quiet she needed to finish her next book. Evelyn never hosted another dinner. Charles eventually went bankrupt. His gallery shuttered within months. Isabel left the manor and moved to the coast, where she lived simply and anonymously. Detective Quinn returned to London. He kept the Queen of Spades in his desk drawer, occasionally glancing at it on nights when he couldn't sleep. Greystone Manor stood silent once more, the windows dark, the halls quiet, the dining room empty. But every year, on the night of the last toast, a storm would pass over the hill, and the wind would whistle through the broken chimney, like a whisper, or perhaps a warning. Because some ghosts don't haunt corridors. They haunt choices.